So what you just saw here was actually what was supposed to be a 5 rep max weight 165 kg in the Zercher deadlift. You might think that's fucking unrealistic looking at that video, and I wouldn't blame you. But actually, after my recent block, my last mesocycle, it seemed pretty possible. I did 6 reps with 155 kilos, and it honestly felt like I could maybe do one more. Then I had a deload where I on my third deadlift day, I worked up to a single with 161.2 kilos, and that was really good. But then in my first week of this meso, I made a mistake and went really just too hard on my third walking lunges and actually failed those, which meant my third deadlift 2 days later with 160, I only got 4 reps. The first rep felt slower than the rep I had during my deload, which was actually even with more weight. And then what you're seeing here was 1 week later, and it was probably still affecting me. I should probably have taken this one easy. I was still paying the price from not going too hard, from not taking a little bit of weight off, getting my confidence back in the lift, because you can quickly lose confidence when you start to fail. But actually, what I wanted to talk about is that I know a lot of you are probably thinking, why are you doing Zercher deadlifts? Those are going to be bad for your back. The same thing with things like Jefferson curls. And what I will say is that everything just comes down to proper or improper preparation. So just because you can deadlift heavy doesn't mean you can do heavy Jefferson curls or Zercher deadlift. So because let's talk about what it actually requires to do a heavy Jefferson curl. It's pretty much the same as everything. You should be able to get into the end range and comfortable too. You should be strong enough to control the weight down and be strong enough to complete the rep on the way up. What the thing with the Zercher Jefferson curl or even a Zercher deadlift for a lot of people is that it requires those things in a range where people have never been in before, which is therefore just their passive ROM. And what I mean by that is that we have the active range of motion and we have our passive range of motion. The active range of motion is where most lifts are performed, where we are strong in. The passive range of motion is where we don't have the contractile tissue. So the contractile tissue is our muscles. They don't have the strength in those positions. So we need to build up the flexibility in our hamstrings to be able to easily get into the position required, but also the eccentric strength so that we can stop in any point in time on the way down. So the weight should never actually pull you into the position. You should always be able to get down comfortably with your own strength. You should be able to actually pull yourself into the position with your hip flexors. That is one of the most important things actually, because those are the ones that are gonna get you down there. Of course, the weight is gonna make it easier to get into the position, but as soon as you start going too heavy and the weight just gets you down there without any control, that is when we risk being injured, especially if you don't have the flexibility yet. Then it's gonna be you're gonna run a very big risk of getting injured. Then it can actually be even worse for you that you actually have all this strength from your deadlift, because then you might see people throwing on a lot of weight and thinking just because they're strong in that position, they will be able to actually get further down. But then the weight is gonna pull them down because they don't have the control in that range of motion, and then it's gonna tear something apart in the lower back or in the hamstrings. So if there's proper preparation, then it's not gonna be any more dangerous than just doing a regular deadlift. Also, I just wanted to say that a Jefferson curl is almost purely hamstring and glutes, because it's a hinge, it's a hip extension you're going to do on the way up, with the erectors doesn't contribute to that. If you look at a proper, perfect Jefferson curl, then you'll actually see that when you start the flexion of the back, the weight is barely moving at all, and it only starts to move when you're doing the hinging at the hips, which indicates that it's just the glutes and the hamstring that is doing the work. I'll do a proper breakdown of this looking at the Jefferson curl in another video, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Actually, what I really wanted to talk about in this video was how I think that the Zercher deadlift carries over to a conventional deadlift, and then a little bit about the fatigue management. So you'll see a lot of people who are really good at deadlift. They start with their hips a lot higher. They do everything they can to protract the upper back to reach as fast as they can with their arms to really make them long. And what this does is that it'll, first of all, it will of course make the range of motion shorter, but it will also make you stronger off the floor. So when you're doing a Zercher deadlift or a Jefferson curl for that sake, you're starting with your hips extremely high, and you're strengthening your lower back like crazy, which will allow you to, when you're doing your deadlift, you will have less strength to actually round your lower back a bit. If you have the strength for that, that's actually going to be a more beneficial position, and you'll have the ability to actually start with your hips really high and have that strength off the floor. A Zercher deadlift and a Jefferson curl doesn't just become easier off the floor because you're start with the hips high. Those are extremely hard off the floor, to be honest. But if you get strong in those, you can actually feel like your conventional deadlift is gonna be way stronger off the floor. That's the thing I've noticed. I hadn't done conventional deadlift for over a year. My record was 230, and I can do 260 now any day. And that's without having trained for a while. My technique is probably a little bit off as well. So my goal here is to see if I can get up to a 200 kilo Zercher deadlift, and if I can do that, if I can actually then pull 300 in a deadlift, like with a little bit of getting used to it, practicing the technique and the lift specifically. So that's kind of the plan. After these, as I said, these harder weeks where I went too hard on my deadlift, the plan now is to get the fatigue a little bit under control. So I think even though I don't have a deload in this next week, I'm going to take it easy on the Zercher deadlift. Maybe not move up further than 120 the next 2 weeks because I have the deload after this week. And then I'll just stay at 150, and then when I actually have my strength realization weeks, when I feel like 150 is moving easy as fuck, I can easily put on 170 and do a single there. That is kind of going to be the plan. So just get the confidence back, get reps in that I'm not going to fail. And I think that is going to be a good way to build up to the 200 kilo deadlift. Anyway, this is my full posterior focus day. And you saw me actually here in the video work up to a 185 kilo deadlift for 5. I decided after failing the 165 kg for 5 on the Zercher deadlift that I would just do some conventional deadlift and work up to 5 reps at AP5. And actually, I think these 5 reps is actually a PR. So that is a really good sign that when I'm really tired, I can probably do 10 reps with 185 kilos. And I wouldn't be surprised if I can do 200 on a day where I really set myself up for it, especially with a little bit of just a block focusing on higher reps at a lower intensity, and then having a day where I go for it. I wouldn't be surprised if I have above 200 for 10 reps. Either way, you saw me do some bent hip Nordics earlier in the video, and I really like those for the hamstrings. I especially like it because it's a bodyweight exercise. It makes it more functional. Everything that requires just using your body weight. And I feel like it's easier to recover from as well when it's just bodyweight exercises. And also just have a really good connection with my hamstrings in those. And I can go past failure here. You saw me do eccentric reps and still recover really well. After that, I did some banded Nordics for higher reps just to get a little bit of a pump, not insanely hard, After that, I moved on to these 45-degree hypers. And these are probably my favorite exercise in the program right now because the connection I have with my hamstrings on these are insane. So I set up this in a way where I can get a really big range of motion because whenever I train for hypertrophy, there's really just three things that I think are really important. The first one is, of course, mechanical tension. We want to get within like 3 or 4 reps at least from to failure to trigger the response we want. Then we have the range of motion. We want a big range of motion where we're getting a stretch in the getting into the lengthened position of the muscle we are targeting because we know that it's gonna give more hypertrophy. And then the last one is control, especially so controlling the eccentric about 3 to 4 seconds down. Those are really the three things that I'm after. And what it also does is it requires less overall weight to hit the sets and reps we want at a given RPE, and which also is gonna make it easier to recover from. Then I ended with these GHR sit-ups, which honestly felt extremely good. I haven't done any specific ab work for I don't know how long, and I saw Brendan Cheats doing these on YouTube, and I wanted to try them out. So really, the focus here is to when I go down, I want to extend the back fully, but not necessarily get like the biggest stretch at the hips, because the back, the function is just to be able to the function of the abs is just to flex the spine. It's not to you really only need that to work the abs. So what I'm also trying to do when I get to the top is to get that full flexion. I'm not just going up and then flexing my hips. Then I would just be training my hip flexors. I'm thinking about getting the contraction in the abs by flexing the spine. Anyways, that is the training. I will try to get out a lot more videos like this. If you enjoyed it, then leave a like, leave a comment, and remember to subscribe and share it with a friend.